Enzo was nervous as he entered the interview room. The renowned technology company in San Francisco pulsed with the frenetic rhythm of talented and ambitious young people. He adjusted the necklace he was wearing, a gift from his adoptive mother, Gloria. The necklace, adorned with a small heart-shaped pendant, had always been a symbol of protection and love for him. Since he was little, Gloria had told him that the necklace would protect him from all evils, and he had always believed it to be true. The interviewer, Carlos, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a piercing gaze, welcomed him with a cordial smile. "Good morning, Enzo. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Shall we begin?" Carlos said, gesturing for Enzo to sit in front of him. "Good morning, Mr. Carlos. Thank you for the opportunity," Enzo replied, trying to control the trembling in his hands. He took a deep breath, focusing on what he had prepared to say. As Carlos reviewed his resume, Enzo couldn't help but notice how the interviewer's gaze seemed to fixate on his necklace. It was almost as if the necklace had a story of its own to tell. "That necklace is very beautiful. Could you tell me about it?" Carlos asked, breaking the silence that had settled in the room. "Oh yes, it's a gift from my adoptive mother. She always said it was a symbol of protection," Enzo explained, feeling a bit more at ease. "She told me it helped her during a very difficult time in her life." Carlos fell silent for a moment, seeming to contemplate Enzo's words. Then, with an expression that mixed surprise and curiosity, he said, "You know, that necklace belongs to my daughter, Eva. She disappeared 20 years ago." Carlos's words hit Enzo like a bolt of lightning. He felt his stomach churn and his breath become irregular. "Disappeared? I didn't know. What happened to her?" he asked, confusion evident in his tone. Carlos ran his hand over his face, visibly emotional. "Eva was my only daughter. She was only 18 when she disappeared. She was a young woman full of dreams and talents. I never lost hope of finding her, but the pain of not knowing what happened to her is unbearable." Enzo couldn't process the information he had just received. He looked at the necklace, now heavy around his neck, as if it carried the weight of a fate he had never imagined. "Are you saying that I am her son?" he stammered, his voice faltering. Carlos nodded slowly, his eyes filled with tears. "It seems so. The necklace. It's a sign. Eva always wore this necklace. I always believed that one day she would return to me, but now it seems we have a new connection." Enzo felt the world spinning around him. The revelation left him dazed. He had never questioned his origins. Gloria had always told him that he was loved and that he had a family that embraced him. But now, the idea that he might have a biological mother, a different life, an untold story, made him feel as if he were in a suspense movie. I need to know more. What happened to her? What do you know?" Enzo insisted, his voice now firmer, but still laden with disbelief. A spark of determination began to shine within him. He needed to understand what this new truth meant for his life, his identity. Carlos, sensing Enzo's urgency, replied, "Let's find out together. You deserve to know the truth about your mother, and I need to know what happened to my daughter." The room, which had previously seemed like a simple interview space, was now transforming into a starting point for a journey of discoveries and revelations. Enzo felt that the life he knew was about to change forever. Enzo arrived home with his mind racing, Carlos's words echoing in his ears. The necklace he was wearing, a gift from Gloria, was now a symbol of a truth he had never imagined. Upon entering the apartment, he felt a lump in his throat. Gloria was in the kitchen, stirring a pot, and the smell of dinner filled the space. But for Enzo, that familiar smell brought no comfort. On the contrary, it was like a reminder that everything he had believed until then was an illusion. "Hi, my love. How was the interview?" Gloria asked, not looking at him as she added seasoning to the food. Her voice was soft, but Enzo felt that something was about to change. "Gloria, we need to talk," he said, his voice trembling. The serious tone of Enzo made Gloria stop and turn, her expression immediately becoming alert. "Of course. What happened?" Gloria's heart began to race, sensing the gravity of the situation. Carlos, the interviewer. He recognized the necklace I'm wearing. He said it belonged to his daughter, Eva, who disappeared 20 years ago. And more. He told me that Eva is my mother. The words rushed out of his mouth in a whirlwind, and Enzo waited for Gloria to say something, but silence stretched on. Gloria gasped, as if she had been punched in the stomach. Enzo, I don't know what to say. She ran her hand through her hair, clearly stunned. Please, sit down. He didn't want to sit. Anger and confusion pulsed through his veins. Why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you keep me in the dark about my true identity? His voice was raised, filled with a pain he had never felt before. I did it to protect you, Gloria replied, raising her voice in a moment of desperation. Eva had a difficult life, and I thought it was better for you not to know. I wanted you to have a normal childhood, away from all of this. Normal? Enzo laughed sarcastically, tears welling in his eyes. Do you think my whole life has been normal? I've always wondered where I came from, who I am, and now you tell me that all of this was a lie. Enzo, please, try to understand. Gloria started, but he didn't want to listen. The feeling of betrayal consumed him. Understand what? That you made choices for me without ever giving me the chance to decide for myself. I can't believe you knew all this, and still let me live this farce. His words came out heavy, each one cutting like a knife. Gloria's expression turned into a mix of pain and guilt. I thought that if I kept you away from that past, you would be able to be happy. I just wanted to protect you, Enzo. Protect or hide, Enzo shot back, his voice full of bitterness. I need to know the truth. I need to understand who I really am, and you can't stop me from that. I didn't want you to suffer, Gloria murmured, her voice choked. Eva, she went through terrible things. I didn't want you to have to carry that weight. So you preferred that I lived in ignorance? Enzo questioned, now calmer but still hurt. I want to know what happened to her. I need to know. Gloria closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. I just wanted you to be happy. I never wanted you to feel pain. And now you've left me with more questions than answers, Enzo said, his voice softer but still laden with pain. I'm going after her, Gloria. I need to know the truth, even if it means uncovering things I don't want to know. The tension between them was palpable, an abyss opening before them. Enzo turned and left the apartment, determined to seek the answers he so desperately desired, even if it meant confronting the dark past that his adoptive mother had tried to hide. The path ahead was uncertain, but he knew he couldn't turn back. Enzo felt the weight of the truth on his shoulders as he walked alongside Carlos. The revelation about his biological mother, Eva, still echoed in his mind. He had not only discovered that he was the son of a missing woman, but also that Gloria, the mother he had always loved, had concealed this truth for years. The idea of seeking answers felt increasingly urgent, as if each step brought him closer to an understanding that had long eluded him. We need to go to her house, Enzo said, his voice firm but filled with emotion. If Eva left anything, it might be there. Carlos nodded, his somber gaze reflecting the gravity of the situation. I have some information about the address. Let's go quickly. That small act of unity, of sharing a goal, made Enzo feel less alone. They drove through the streets of San Francisco, and the city felt more solemn than usual. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in orange and pink, as if the universe was aware of what was about to happen. When they arrived at the house, an old, weathered mansion, Enzo felt a shiver down his spine. The door creaked as it was pushed open, revealing a dust-covered interior filled with forgotten memories. This must be the place, Carlos murmured, as his eyes scanned the surroundings. Enzo began to explore the location, each step revealing echoes of the past. He stopped in a room that seemed to have been an art studio. Look at this, he said, pointing to the walls where some unfinished paintings were hanging. Eva was an artist. The works reflected an internal struggle, each brushstroke an expression of pain and beauty. Enzo was drawn to one particular painting, a blend of vibrant colors that seemed to capture the essence of someone searching for their place in the world. Carlos approached, admiring the piece. "She really had talent," he commented, his voice filled with reverence. "But she also struggled with her demons. The journal might give us more clues." With that in mind, they began searching for a journal or any other object that could connect the dots. Enzo, in one corner of the room, spotted a small table covered in papers. He crouched down and began to sift through them until a worn notebook caught his attention. "Here!" he exclaimed, holding it as if it were a treasure. Carlos came closer, watching as Enzo started to flip through the pages. The journal was filled with notes, scribbles, and drawings. "Look at this," Enzo said, his voice trembling. "She talks about her hopes and fears." "Read some," Carlos suggested, sitting down next to Enzo. He hesitated for a moment, but then began to read aloud. "Today I feel lost. Art is the only thing that keeps me alive, but even that is slipping away from me. Addiction has become a black hole, sucking everything around me. Sometimes, I dream of the day I can reunite with my family, but am I still worthy of them?" The words cut Enzo like a knife. He could feel his mother's pain, the battle she fought. "She was trapped in her own struggle," Enzo said, his voice choked. "How can someone be so talented and still feel so alone?" Carlos placed a hand on Enzo's shoulder, offering silent comfort. "Every story has two sides. We need to understand what happened for her to reach this point." As they continued to read, Enzo and Carlos uncovered revelations about Ava's life, including her artistic aspirations and personal battles. There were mentions of people who supported her, but also of friends who pushed her away, and the moments that led her to lose herself in a sea of loneliness and addiction. She wanted to be free, Carlos reflected, but freedom became a prison. Enzo closed the journal, feeling a new connection with the woman he had never met, but who was now a part of him. "We need to find her, Carlos. We can't leave this story without an ending." Carlos agreed, his gaze determined. "Let's find out what happened to Ava and, if possible, bring her back. Not just for her, but for you too, Enzo." At that moment, the two men became more than just friends. They became allies in a quest for answers that could finally heal the wounds of the past. They were ready to face whatever came next, together. Enzo and Carlos were sitting in a cafe, the atmosphere tense and charged with expectation. The young man kept his eyes fixed on the coffee cup trembling in his hands, while Carlos, for his part, gazed out the window, lost in thought. What they had discovered in that interview had changed everything. The connection between Enzo and Eva now felt like an invisible thread binding them together on a journey of pain and hope. "We need more answers, Carlos," Enzo said, breaking the silence. "If Jorge knows something, we need to find him. He could be the key to understanding what really happened to my mother." Carlos nodded, his gaze steady. "I agree. Jorge may be a corrupt ex-cop, but he might still have crucial information. Let's go after him." The determination in Enzo's eyes reflected his need to uncover the truth about his origins, a truth that had been denied to him until now. With a plan in mind, they stood up and left the cafe, ready to face the unknown. After a few hours of searching, Enzo and Carlos finally arrived at a dimly lit bar in the suburbs of San Francisco, where Jorge was known to be seen. The place emanated a smell of alcohol and cigarettes, and the few patrons seemed as lost as Jorge himself. Enzo hesitated before entering, his heart racing. He didn't know what to expect from a man who, according to the information he had gathered, was involved in dark dealings. "Hey, let's get straight to the point," Carlos whispered, noticing Enzo's hesitation. "We need answers." Enzo took a deep breath, and together they walked toward the back of the bar, where Jorge was sitting in a corner with a drink in hand. He looked older than Enzo remembered, with deep wrinkles marking his face and a gaze that spoke of unspoken regrets. "Jorge," Carlos said, taking the initiative, "we need to talk." The ex-cop looked up, surprised to see the two of them. "What do you want?" His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't cared about what was happening around him for a long time. "We know about Ava," Enzo interjected, feeling the adrenaline rise. We need to know the truth about what happened to her. Jorge looked at the two of them before letting out a bitter laugh. The truth? I don't know if you're ready to hear it. Carlos leaned forward. We're ready. We need to understand. We know you can help. Jorge hesitated, but the urgency in Enzo's and Carlos's eyes seemed to touch a part of him that still cared. Look, I knew Eva. She had her demons, and that drove her away from everyone. But Gloria, she wasn't just an adoptive mother. She was involved in things that most people wouldn't imagine. What do you mean? Enzo asked, distressed. What are you saying? Gloria was involved in a counterfeiting scheme, Jorge revealed, his voice low. She did it to hide Eva's past. The truth is that Eva didn't disappear by chance. There's more to the story than you think. Enzo felt his stomach churn. And do you know where she is? Maybe, Jorge said, looking around as if worried about eavesdroppers. But I can't just tell you. Information has a price. Carlos frowned. What's the price? A promise that you won't get into trouble, that you'll leave the past where it belongs, Jorge replied, his expression serious. And that if you find Eva, you won't force her to return to a life she doesn't want. Enzo exchanged a meaningful glance with Carlos. He knew that the search for Eva would not be easy, but they were determined. We promise. Just tell us what you know. With a resigned sigh, Jorge began to recount what he knew. I have some leads that could take us to her. But you will need courage and determination. The path won't be easy. The tension in the air was palpable as Enzo and Carlos listened intently to every word. Jorge became an unexpected figure in their quest, and the revelation that he could be the bridge between them and Eva brought a new focus to their mission. The past they all carried now seemed more intertwined than ever, and the truth was about to be unveiled. Enzo, Carlos, and Jorge formed an unlikely alliance, joining their forces in search of Eva. With each step, the weight of hope and uncertainty accompanied them, but the determination to find the woman who united their stories drove them forward. Jorge, with his knowledge of the old police, led the way with a map in hand indicating a small town in California where, according to him, Eva might be. As they drove, the atmosphere in the car was tense, but there was a growing sense of camaraderie. Carlos looked at Enzo and said, Are you ready for this? What are you going to say to her when we find her? Enzo took a deep breath, feeling his heart race. I don't know. I just want to understand. I want to know why she distanced herself, why she wasn't there for me. His words came out haltingly, revealing the pain he carried. Jorge, who was in the front seat, turned slightly, looking in the rearview mirror. It's going to be hard. I don't know how she will react to all this. Her life hasn't been easy, and what you find may not be what you expect. I just want her to know that I don't blame her, Enzo replied, his voice steady, even as fear and anxiety swirled in his chest. They continued their journey, each lost in their own thoughts, until they finally arrived at the small town that seemed to have stopped in time. The streets were narrow and tree-lined, with old houses and a tranquil yet oppressive atmosphere, as if the town held deep secrets. Jorge took them to an art gallery, a small wooden building with framed windows that revealed vibrant works on display. It's here that they used to showcase her work, Jorge explained, his tone heavy with nostalgia and sadness. As soon as they entered, Enzo felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. The gallery was nearly empty, except for a woman with disheveled hair and a distant gaze, who stood in front of a canvas. The colors of the painting seemed to scream for help, reflecting a pain that Enzo couldn't ignore. It was as if the artwork was alive, expressing the internal struggles he knew Eva had faced. Carlos was the first to approach. Eva, he said cautiously, as the woman turned slowly, and her eyes met theirs. The recognition was instant, but her expression was a mix of surprise and distrust. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling but firm. The tension in the air was palpable. My name is Carlos, and this is Enzo, your son, Carlos said, his gaze fixed on Eva. The words hung in the air like a weight. Eva fell silent, her eyes wide. My son, she repeated, as if the idea was suffocating her. I can't. This can't be true. It's true, Mother. I wore the necklace you left for me. It belongs to you. Carlos and we're here to understand, to find you and know what happened, Enzo said, his voice choked with emotion. He felt his heart race, anxious for her not to run away again. Ava looked at the ground, as if trying to find the strength to face reality. I can't do this. I'm not who you think I am. I failed. I distanced myself. Ava, we're not here to judge you. We're here because we want to help, Carlos said, stepping forward. You're not alone. We need to know what happened. Tears began to slide down Eva's face, and she whispered, I fought against addiction. Life took me away from you, and I didn't know how to come back. I didn't think I deserved to come back. Enzo felt a wave of compassion for her. He took a step forward, approaching her even amidst her pain. You don't need to feel this way. I want to understand your story. I want to know who you really are. Please, tell us. Eva hesitated, but Enzo's gaze was genuine, and he seemed as lost as she was. She took a deep breath and finally began to speak, revealing a past marked by struggles, love, and regret, while Carlos and Enzo listened attentively, absorbing every word as the hope for a new connection began to form between them. Ava was sitting in a small cafe by the art gallery, the soft light of dusk filtering through the windows, creating a cozy atmosphere. Enzo and Carlos watched her with a mix of nervousness and hope. The reunion had been intense, and now, while they waited for their drinks, the atmosphere was charged with unspoken emotions. Enzo felt the weight of the history that united them, a web of pain and love that needed to be unraveled. You must have so many questions, Eva said, breaking the silence and her voice trembling but determined. I know you want to know why I distanced myself, why I left you and your father. She looked at Carlos, who was sitting across from her, his eyes full of compassion. I don't know how to start, Enzo replied, swallowing hard. My whole life was built around what I believed to be the truth. And now, all of this. It's as if the ground has vanished beneath my feet. Carlos, noticing his son's anguish, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. It's okay, Enzo. We're here to listen. You don't need to feel pressured to have all the answers right now. Ava took a deep breath, her eyes misty. I never wanted you to know about my struggle. Addiction. It took over my life in a way I never imagined it could happen. I distanced myself from everyone, even from myself. How could you let all this happen? Enzo asked, the pain in his voice palpable. You could have come back. We could have helped you. I thought I was protecting you, Eva replied, a sad smile forming on her lips. But the truth is, I was just running away. Running from the pain I caused myself and the shame I felt, and what I wanted was for you to be happy, without the weight of my past. Carlos, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. Ava, you don't have to carry that weight alone. We're here, and we want to understand. It's the only way to rebuild these broken bonds. Eva looked at Carlos, and for the first time, a glimmer of hope lit up her gaze. Do you really want that? To rebuild? Yes, Enzo replied, his voice steady. I want to understand who you are, what you went through. And, more importantly, I want you to know that you're not alone. We are family. Those words seemed to create a new space between them, where pain and understanding could coexist. Eva felt a wave of emotion, and the truth she had kept hidden for so long began to flow. I wish I had been stronger, but addiction is treacherous, and it isolated me. I lost myself in a world of loneliness and despair. My days were a constant struggle. You're not alone now, Carlos assured, holding Eva's hand across the table. We will face this together. The first thing we need to do is seek help. It's not just for you, but for us as a family. Eva nodded, tears streaming down her face. I want to try. I want to be the mother you deserve, Enzo. And I want you to know the real Eva, not just the woman who disappeared. Enzo felt a wave of emotion at hearing those words. He wanted to believe they were sincere, that there was hope for the future. I would like to meet this Eva, he said, his voice gentle. The woman who has an incredible talent and who can still find the light again. And we will do this together, Carlos added, smiling at them. Today is the first day of a new chapter. The conversation continued, with Eva sharing details of her life, her struggles and small triumphs, while Enzo and Carlos listened attentively. With each word, the bonds that had been broken began to intertwine again. It was a painful but necessary process, and with each new revelation, a new layer of understanding and empathy formed between them. I'm not perfect, and I never will be, Eva said, the vulnerability in her voice echoing in the air. But I want to fight for you. I want to be worthy of your trust. That's all we ask, Enzo replied sincerely. The truth and the commitment that, no matter what happens, we will be a family. The conversation unfolded over hours, marked by nervous laughter, tears, and promises of a better future. And despite the challenges still to come, at that small cafe table, a new bond began to form, filled with hope and determination. The tension hung in the air as Enzo, Carlos, and Eva prepared to face the consequences of the past. The day had come, and the police had finally decided to act regarding the counterfeiting scheme that Gloria and Jorge were involved in. The emotional connection that had formed between the three now became a pillar of strength in the face of what was to come. As they walked together down the street, Enzo felt his heart race, a mix of anxiety and determination. He looked at Eva, who walked beside him, and saw the fragility in her eyes, but also a new spark of hope. Are you ready for this? Enzo asked, his voice low but firm. I don't know if I'm ready, but I can't live in hiding anymore, Eva replied, squeezing Carlos's hand, who walked on her other side. I need to face this once and for all. Carlos, who had become a father figure to Enzo and an unwavering support for Eva, looked at her with a determined expression. No one is alone in this boat. Together, we are stronger. What matters now is that the truth comes out. When they arrived at the police station, the atmosphere was heavy. Gloria was being interrogated in a separate room, and Jorge, who had shown reluctance to cooperate, was waiting for his turn. Enzo felt torn between the love he still had for Gloria and the outrage over everything he had discovered. He knew she had done this out of love, but the pain of betrayal was palpable. You can do this, Enzo, Carlos said, noticing the young man's distant gaze. Remember what you've learned. The truth is liberating. It's easy for you to say, Carlos. You're not the one who has been deceived your whole life, Enzo replied, his voice trembling. I don't know how to deal with this. How can I look at her after everything? Carlos placed his hand on Enzo's shoulder, forcing him to meet his gaze. You have to be honest with yourself. You can't change the past, but you can choose how to react to it. What she did was wrong, but that doesn't erase the love you feel for her. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Gloria felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The door opened, and the detective in charge of the case entered. Gloria, let's get started. Do you know why we're here? Yes, I know, she replied, her voice almost a whisper. I did what I did to protect my son. Protect your son from what? What have you hidden from him? The detective questioned, his expression stern. Gloria hesitated, tears beginning to slip down her face. I didn't want him to know the truth about Eva, about her addiction. I thought I was doing what was best for him. Meanwhile, Enzo and Carlos waited outside, anxious. What do you think she will say? Enzo asked, distressed. I don't know, but I hope she is honest about everything. You deserve to know the truth, Carlos replied, trying to convey confidence. Suddenly, the door opened again, and Gloria came out, pale and worn. She looked at Enzo, and the young man felt the pain in her eyes. Enzo, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for hiding it from you. Why didn't you tell me? I could have handled it. Enzo replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "I didn't want you to suffer, dear. I just wanted to protect you," Gloria pleaded, her hands trembling. "Protect? You destroyed my life," Enzo exclaimed, the pain evident in his words. "I just want to understand who I am, and you took that away from me." Carlos, sensing the intensity of the conversation, decided to intervene. "Gloria, now is the time to be transparent. You need to tell everything you know about Ava, about her past and what happened to her." Gloria's expression changed, and she took a deep breath, preparing to reveal what she knew. I knew Ava was in trouble. She had her demons. And I thought that if I kept her away, I could protect her, but I was wrong. I should have sought help, but I was so scared. Enzo's eyes filled with tears, a mix of anger and sadness. "And Jorge? What does he have to do with all this?" "Jorge, he was a family friend, but he got involved in the wrong things. I didn't know he was so deeply involved," Gloria confessed, her voice breaking. "I never wanted you to get caught up in these secrets." As Gloria's words echoed in the room, Enzo felt a weight lift. The truth wouldn't erase the pain, but perhaps it could be the first step toward healing, not just for him, but for everyone involved. He looked at Carlos, who nodded in support. "We will face this together, Gloria. The truth needs to be known, and we will stand by your side." Ava was nervous. The art gallery was full, and the walls were adorned with her works, each telling a story of pain, loss, and ultimately, hope. The night of the exhibition had arrived, and despite all the challenges she had faced, she felt ready to share her work with the world. Looking around, she saw Enzo and Carlos, who had unconditionally supported her on her journey, and a shy smile appeared on her lips. Carlos said, "You look amazing, Ava," placing his hand on her shoulder. "Your art is powerful. People need to see this." "Thank you, Carlos. I just hope they can feel what I felt while creating each of these pieces," Ava replied, her voice trembling. "It's a little scary." Enzo approached, holding a glass of water. "You're not alone. We're here with you. And remember, this is about your truth." He looked into her eyes, encouraging her to find the strength he always knew was within her. The exhibition opening began with a brief speech from the curator, who introduced Ava and her story of overcoming adversity. "Today, we have the honor of presenting an artist who not only confronts her demons but also transforms them into beauty. Ava is not just an artist, she is a symbol of resilience and hope," he said as the audience applauded warmly. With her heart beating fast, Ava stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here. For me, this exhibition represents more than just art. It represents a new chance. Each of these works is a part of my past, a part of my struggle. And now it stands as a testament to my journey of recovery." She paused, looking at Enzo and Carlos, who were in the front row with encouraging smiles. "I am grateful to them, who helped me find the strength I didn't know I had. This piece here," she pointed to a vibrant painting capturing a storm, "is about the internal battle I faced. But just like the storm, I found a way to the light." The audience was silent, absorbing her words. Eva continued, "And I dedicate a special painting to these two wonderful men." She turned, pointing at Enzo and Carlos. "You showed me that family is not just about blood ties, but about love and unconditional support." Enzo felt a wave of emotion hearing her words. "Ava, that means the world to us," he said, his voice choked. "We will always be here for you," Carlos added. "That's right, Ava. We are in this journey together." Ava took a deep breath and turned to the canvas that represented her gratitude. It was a piece full of warm colors, symbolizing renewal, hope, and the love she finally felt in her life. This piece, which I titled Blood Ties, is a celebration of new beginnings. It is a tribute to all who fight and overcome. May each of you find your own path to healing and joy. As the exhibition continued, people began to approach, admiring her works and sharing personal stories. Eva felt welcomed, like never before. The connection she had sought for so long was finally forming, and the pain that had accompanied her for years began to dissipate. You really touched everyone's heart, said an older woman, tears in her eyes. Your art is inspiring. Thank you, Ava replied with a genuine smile. I hope everyone finds strength in their own stories. As the night went on, Enzo turned to Carlos and commented, Look at her. She's shining. Yes, and this is just the beginning, Carlos replied, his gaze fixed on the daughter who, despite everything, had found her way back home. The exhibition was a success, but more importantly, it was a milestone in Ava's life. That night, surrounded by love and support, she not only presented her art to the world, she presented herself to herself. And for the first time, she felt truly free. Eva felt nervous as she looked in the mirror in the rehabilitation clinic bathroom. Her reflection showed more than just a fragile woman. It reflected the hope she was trying to cultivate after years of darkness. The soft sunlight coming through the window illuminated her face, and she took a deep breath, remembering Enzo and Carlos, who had become her unwavering support. What she wanted most at that moment was not to disappoint them again. However, the journey of recovery would never be easy. As she prepared for the support group, Eva thought of Enzo's words, which had encouraged her during the last visit. You don't have to face this alone, Eva. We're here for you. That phrase echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that, despite past mistakes, there was a chance to rebuild broken ties. In the group, Eva observed every face around her, people of different ages and stories, all there for a common reason: the struggle against their demons. The group facilitator, a gray-haired woman with a warm smile, began to speak. Today, we will share our challenges and achievements. Remember, every step counts. When it was her turn, Eva stood up, feeling the weight of vulnerability. My name is Eva, and I'm here because, well, I want to reconnect with my family. I spent most of my life trying to deal with my addiction alone, and that pushed me away from those I love. But now, I want to change. Her voice trembled, but she felt strong enough to continue. My adopted children, Enzo and Carlos, are fighting alongside me, and that gives me hope. After the session, Eva went outside the clinic and found Enzo and Carlos waiting for her. Their looks, filled with love and encouragement, warmed her heart. How was it? Carlos asked, coming closer with a smile. It was hard, but I feel lighter, Eva replied, a glimmer of determination in her eyes. We are all in this together, aren't we? For sure, Enzo said, holding her hand. You are not alone. We are here, always. In the following days, Eva's routine at the clinic became more structured. She dedicated herself to attending therapy sessions, practicing meditation, and, above all, exploring her passion for art. Painting became her refuge, a means to express the pain and beauty that coexisted in her life. The canvases she created were a mix of vibrant colors and dark shadows, reflecting her journey of recovery. During one visit, while Enzo watched Eva paint, he commented, "You have an amazing talent, Eva. Those colors, they speak so much about you. Thank you, Enzo. Painting helps me process everything I've been through," she replied with a shy smile. It's like each brushstroke is freeing me a little more. And so, their relationship grew stronger every day. Eva began to receive support not only from Enzo and Carlos, but also from the local community, who saw her as an inspiration. People started attending her painting exhibitions, and she realized that through art, she could help others face their own challenges. A month later, Eva was preparing for her first exhibition. The event would be a celebration of her recovery journey and a tribute to the new connections she had made. She was nervous, but also excited. What do you think? Are you ready for this? She asked Carlos and Enzo, who were helping to organize everything. We are ready. Yes. You're going to rock it, Carlos replied, giving her a pat on the back. And remember, this is about you, your story, your art. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the space was filled with people who came to support Eva. Looking at the crowd, she felt a wave of gratitude. I never imagined I would have so many people by my side, she said, emotional, to Enzo and Carlos. "You deserve all of this and more," Enzo said, holding her hand. "You are a true fighter." When Eva stepped onto the stage to give a speech, her heart raced. "Thank you all for being here. Today I am not just a survivor. I am an artist, a mother, and a daughter. I am learning to reconnect with who I truly am." She looked at Enzo and Carlos, her eyes shining. "And it's thanks to you that I am here." Standing ovation, Eva felt that she was finally healing. The bonds that once seemed lost were being rebuilt, and the hope for a better future lit her path. During a charity event that Enzo organized to help those facing challenges similar to those of his biological mother, the atmosphere was filled with hope and solidarity. The bright lights reflected off the walls as people moved around, talking and sharing stories. Enzo, now more confident and determined, was about to give an inspiring speech when his phone vibrated loudly in his pocket. He answered, unaware of the twist that was about to occur. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was soft, but carried a palpable tension. "You are Enzo, right?" "Yes, that's me." "Who's speaking?" Enzo asked, frowning as he stepped away from the hustle and bustle around him. "You need to know that Jorge is not who he seems. He is directly linked to your mother's disappearance, Eva. And there is more, much more that you need to find out." The revelation left Enzo paralyzed. "What do you mean by that? How do you know this? I am a friend of someone who was there at the time. Jorge has secrets that could change everything. Find him and ask what he knows. Don't trust him." The voice abruptly ended, leaving Enzo in a state of confusion and apprehension. He took a deep breath, trying to process the information as he looked at the crowd. Carlos, who was nearby, noticed Enzo's worried expression and approached him. "Hey, what happened? You look pale," Carlos commented with concern. "I received a phone call. Someone said that Jorge is involved in my mother's disappearance, that he is not who he claims to be," Enzo replied, his voice trembling slightly. Carlos straightened up, his eyes narrowing. "We need to confront him." "Now?" Enzo nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. They left the event and went to the bar where they had previously met Jorge. The place was dark and smoky, with the sound of laughter and conversations mingling with the clinking of glasses. Jorge was sitting in a corner, a glass of whiskey in front of him, looking older and more worn than the last time they saw him. "Jorge," Enzo said, his voice firm. "We need to talk." Jorge looked up, surprised, and then forced a smile. "You guys again. What do you want?" Carlos stepped closer, placing his hand on Jorge's table. "We know you have information about Eva and about her disappearance. We need you to be honest." Jorge hesitated, the expression on his face shifting from disdain to slight concern. "I've told you everything I know. Eva distanced herself, and that's all." "That's not true," Enzo intervened, frustration growing within him. "We received information that says you are directly involved, that you know more than you're telling." Jorge's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you are talking about. It's dangerous to mess with this past. You don't know what could happen. Then tell us." "What really happened?" Carlos pressed, his voice deep. Jorge looked around, as if assessing whether or not he should speak. Finally, he sighed, giving in to the pressure. "All right, I will tell you. But you need to understand that things are more complicated than they seem. Eva, she didn't disappear. She was forced to step away. There were people who threatened her." "Who? What are you saying?" Enzo asked, anxiety rising. "I know the truth because I was part of the scheme. I am a distant relative of Eva. I was put in a position where I had to protect her family. When she was in danger, I helped her disappear. But that wasn't what you think." "It wasn't just a simple disappearance," Jorge explained, his voice now lower and tense. Enzo felt his heart race. "Are you saying you helped my mother escape?" "Why?" "Because there was a network of people who wanted to hurt her, and Gloria was somehow involved. I did what I could to protect Eva, but at the same time I was caught in a bigger game." "There was a lot at stake," Jorge replied, His voice choked. Carlos and Enzo exchanged glances, processing the new information. "This changes everything," Carlos murmured. "We need to know more. We need to understand what happened and how we can help." Jorge nodded slowly, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "If you are willing to listen, I can help you find Ava again, but you need to be ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it is."